Hello, this is Kathleen McKee of Olean.com, Machine Embroidery Art.
When digitizing from a photograph, it's a lot different than digitizing from a graphic like we did in our last advanced digitizing tutorial, in that there's a lot more room for interpretation. There are no clear lines on how to digitize this, so we're going to have to guesstimate a lot of it. The first thing I see is that this chain area goes behind the anchor. So we'll have to digitize that first. Then there's the anchor, and it's outlined with, it looks like a rope type thing. I don't think I'll be able to get anything that small with a rope motif. And then lastly are the letters. So the first thing I'm going to do is do the chain with a motif stitch. So we'll get our plain curved open curved line, and I'm going to make it a motif stitch. The chain motif stitch that I'm going to use does not come with your PE Design any software, Next or 10. I created it myself, and I'll show you real quick again. If you want to have more instructions on doing the motif stitch, go to lesson 26. But your programmable stitch creator is right under the little option box, and you have the ability to do a fill or stamp, and then you get your preview box, and then there's the motif stitch. So by going under the view, I got a template, and I got this template just by going to Google Images, and I typed in chain, and I was able to find this great little template. So by moving the lines around, because a motif stitch, as we've talked about before, it's all one stitch, and it's got to meet. So you got to plot out how this stitch is going to get from here to here and create the illusion of this chain link. But since I've already digitized it, I want to go ahead and show you what it looked like. And I did 3 different chains. The one we're going to do is for the medium-sized chain. I did also okay, you see how the stitches, it runs all through, and you can see in the preview what it's going to look like. I also created a very small chain, and this has way fewer stitches. You can see what it looks like in the preview pane, and that would be for a very micro type design. So let's start off from the bottom, because I want to end up at the top here, and we're just going to have to, I'm not real sure what goes, and then the chain goes on behind here. I'm not real sure what's going on here. I'm just going to take a guess. And then I'm going to double click here. Now that was the last motif stitch, or the default motif stitch, but we're going to go over to our sewing attributes and open up that chain 2 that I had created earlier. I'll say OK. Whoops, gotta select it first. Then we're going to select it. Chain 2, OK. I want to change that color to Harvest Gold. And let's put it in the stitch view so I can see where the stitch is in. I can see by that little scissor icon that that was where the last stitch was. Next, I'm going to do this ring on the top, and I'm going to create that with my favorite tool, the old manual punch. But we're going to send out a running stitch first, because I want the last of this ring to end so we can meet up with the body of the anchor. So from there, we're going to, and then I'm going to stop here because that's going to be my top. So now I'm going to go to my curved, and this is going to be my bottom. Top, bottom, top, bottom. Those of you who have been watching my videos know what I mean by this. So when I do my bottom and double click, now you see the scissors are here, and they've disappeared there because we started within 2 millimeters of the last stitch. So let's send out another running stitch from here. And I could do this anchor, I could do it with a manual punch, but with the new PE Design 10, I just love the ability to put in angle lines. So I'm going to just use the region fill tool. As I said, with the new PE Design 10, you can put your angle lines and make your stitches run any way you want them to. However, you see with this anchor, it's going in, you can't make the angles go in two directly different opposite directions. I've tried it, take my word for it. You're going to have to break this up into two pieces. So I'm going to start with a closed region fill, and I'm going to start where that little scissor ended. And as I said, we're going to do this in two parts. And just going to trace, but as I said, I'm going to do it in two different parts. And I think I'm going to go down to about there, and you see, change it to a curve, change it to a straight again. And of course, you all already know in my advanced classes that you just have to right click to undo your last stitch. And I'm going to double click. Okay, as you we're going to turn off that motif outline and put not sewn. And the last stitch I used was a satin, and I'm going to stick with that satin. However, I am going to change the direction of the stitches because I want them to be nice and smooth and satiny looking, as you can see in realistic preview. Oh, we don't want that. I forgot to choose it. Let's see, let's choose that. Turn off that line not sewn. Okay, now we have a nice smooth satin stitch. Let's put this in the stitch view. But there's a big problem with that, and I'll tell you what that is. When you get your measure tool and you measure from one side to the other, and you look down in your lower left-hand corner, you see almost 27 millimeters. Well, we all know that a satin stitch should go no further than 10 millimeters. But luckily, in this design, you can see these little indentations or whatever in the background. So we're going to go ahead and put those in, knowing that when you put a emboss stitch or emboss line in, it's going to lay a stitch down. So let's put in some emboss lines. We'll go back to our plain open straight line, and I'm going to make this a running stitch in a bright color that I can see well to contrast. And we're going to put 4 on each side. And it doesn't matter if they go over. And I'm not following the design exactly because even if I do put these embossed lines, it's still between the two closest. And you look down here, it's still 12.5, and we want it to be a little bit closer than that. So put 1, and we're doing 2, 3, and I'm going to get a little closer here, and then I'm going to start close there. 1, 2, 3. We can move these around later, which 4. Okay, so now we'll start the process of putting the embossed lines on these satin stitches. I do want to measure one more time to see what the distance is between the two embossed lines. Yeah, it's going to be under 10. I might want to make them a little bit closer. So let's choose the line, one of the red lines. With our finger on the control key, we're going to select the background. and that will highlight and allow us to use the emboss engrave, and we'll just do an engrave line. Same with the other. We're going to choose the line with our finger on the control key, choose the background, and then emboss engrave. Same with the next one. Choose it, control key, select the backdrop, and emboss engrave. Okay, I have now engraved these. Let's look at it in realistic preview. And I think I want to bring these lines a little, this one here, a little bit closer in. So you can do that when you go to the emboss engrave. There's the input stamp tool, and then there's the edit. So we're going to grab the edit, and we're just going to select the area. And then once we've selected the area, you see the little red moving line around, red, white, and then you can select the line that you just embossed or engraved with, and we can move it. You can edit it all kinds of different ways. These two, this one looks a little too close together. Sometimes it's hard to pick them out. It might be easier in the stitch view where you can see the stitches a little bit better. Well, not in this one. Okay, there, I found it. I'm going to move that one a little bit further away. And we'll move this one. It looks like there's two of them there. I'm not sure what's going on there. Anyway, so now we have it a little bit closer. Yeah, I can live with that. If I were doing this for real, I'd probably do it a little bit closer. Okay, so we've got the first section done. So the next thing I need to do is find out where the last stitch ends. Oh, I want to put it in stitch view so we can see our little scissor mark. And let's see, we'll straighten this out a little bit better. A little more horizontal. Okay, and we'll do that by using the select entry exit point icon. And you see it says region in, and then you got the region. To see that little arrow, that means the region, the stitch is going out there. So let's drag that down, and we'll have it go out here. Now when we select the arrow, you can see the little scissors are down there. So that's where we're going to start the next region. Okay, I'm going to use the plain closed straight and curved region fill tools, and I'll start with a curve. I'm going to start right on top of where that scissor ended. Now I'm using the keyboard to change my curved region tool into a straight so I can make this sharp turn, and then sharp turn again. Now I'm going to click on the X to turn it back into the curved. It's always a good idea to have your tool be in the straight region fill when you're making sharp turns, because as you might have already figured out, when you use the curved angle tool, if the lines cross over, it will not populate the stitches when you finish and double click. So let's turn that to, okay, now I'll turn it back to a curve. And now I'm going to keyboard Z and turn it back to a straight, and do another stitch, and then turn it back into a curve. And this is coming to a point here, so I'm going to come down, and then I'm going to keyboard the letter Z to turn the tool to a straight again. Now I'll turn it back to a curve tool by keyboarding the letter X. Okay, Z for straight curve, X for curved tool, Z for straight again, X for curve, Z straight, straight, then X curve. And then I'm going to go Z straight, and I'm just going to overlap this just a little bit, and I'm going to double click. All right, let me edit this point a little bit. I want that to be right kind of in the middle. And we don't want this running outline stitch, so no line sewn. Now, looking at it at the realistic preview, I don't want these stitches going all that way. I want it to, those go that way, but I need to add another direction line. So I'm going to add a direction line here, and I'm going to add one here and here. And now let's take a look at what this, now it's starting to shape up. I think I want to put a outline around it as well. I want to put, it was like a rope, but I think I'm just going to put a plain running stitch around it. So let's start up at the top again. Oops, don't want that. We'll start up with a open, straight running stitch, and I have to turn the line sew back on again. It's in red, but we're going to want that in Harvest Gold like the rest of it. So let's go ahead and outline around this as close. Now, when you're doing this at home, I'm sure you're going to be a lot more tedious about doing it. Okay, I'm just about finished. I didn't make you watch all that, and I'm going to double click. So that puts, and that looks okay. I'll have to tweak some of these and edit some of these lines so they meet up a little bit better. And let's put this back in stitch view. The next part I'm going to, oh, here's an important thing. Also measuring this, you see these stitches, that's 11. So that's going to, this one from here to here, that's 11 also. These satin stitches, bit too long for one stitch, so I'm going to do another emboss. And luckily this image has a lot of shading and like a shiny effect on it, so we can add that in there and it will actually add to the design. So let's go ahead and get our, and I'm going to make it a color I can see. And I'm just going to put a and double click. All right, now we're going to select that line with our finger on the control key, select the background. Now we're going to emboss, engrave it, or engrave. Okay, let's see what that looks like in realistic. Oh yeah, that gives it a lot more depth. The last thing I need to do is to do the text, the USN. So I'm going to do that with a manual punch. And let's see, I guess I'll start up here. And by putting my finger on the Z, I'm changing it to a straight block. I think I'll keyboard X and change it into a curved block at this point because that looks a little roundy. I think I change that one, undo it, change it to a straight again. And back to a curved block. Oh, that's not curving so good. Hold on. Okay, let's try that again. Now we're going to try curving it. We can always go back and edit these later. Double click. And that color is going to be silver. And I'm going to have to edit this point here. But I do want, now with the new PE Design 10, we can put an outline around it. And I wanted that just to give it a little more definition. So we'll put a running stitch around it, and we'll change that color to silver. Okay, let's go ahead and tweak. I'm going to put another point in there and just move it up. There we go. All right, and let me also see under sewing attributes, yeah, we have the half stitch checked, so that if it gets jammed up in there, and it is a satin stitch. Going to do the same thing with the S. Going to use the manual punch tool. And start off with a straight. And then Z. And I don't know. Probably should have used the curve. Let's try the curve. I've got to undo some of these. This isn't coming out right. I'm just going to do all straights. I'm not aiming for perfection here, as you can see. Normally when I do text, I always try to end up and have the letters join at the closest spot. The reason why I'm not doing it with this is because these letters are so far apart that even if I did join them at the closest spot, it's still going to jump. So let's see, let's select them, select this object, and we're going to put a running stitch around it as well. With this N, because I'm going to have to hand draw that line around it, because if I try to use the manual punch or the way to properly digitize an N goes like this. Goes like double click. Now, if I use the region fill tool, then I'd have to try to move all those different angles around with the angle lines, and it wouldn't look as clean and as crisp as a manual punch N. But the problem with that is I can now know when I select it, I can't add the running stitch around it because it's not going to look right. So I'm going to have to hand draw that outline. So I'm going to remove that outline, and I'm just going to do it doesn't matter, I can do it with this one. I'm just going to go around it manually. Double click. And so it will be outlined like the rest. So this is pretty much what we ended up with. I would do a lot more tweaking, but I hope what you got from this tutorial is remembering to use your motif stitches and learning how to work with this new angle and direction lines that you can add to the region fills. Please remember to send me your design ideas and your questions and your problems. I'd love to use them as an example in my next tutorial.
Hello, this is Kathleen McKee of Oling.com, Machine Embroidery Art.